evening, everyone. My name is Maria, and welcome to Y2030 Interviews. And our guest today is Mr. Alfredo Sfer-Yunis. Welcome, Mr. Sfer-Yunis. And he is a global leader renowned for advancing human-centered policies. He's also environmental economist, one of the first of his kind. He is a politician and a spiritual guide. And as a former World Bank representative to UN and WTO, Alfredo leveraged his finance expertise to shape more inclusive economic growth worldwide. And I think that these two lines are definitely not describing your full journey. So, Mr. Sfer-Yunis, I'd like you to share a few words about yourself, your learnings, and what would you like to share with us today about yourself?
Well, thank you very much. It is an honor for me to be here. If I had to go to a conference in general, probably my answer would have been very functional. This is me, from Chile, economist, and so on, but I don't want to do it in this particular event. I like to say first that I am a third generation of migrants, and that really set a lot in my life, particularly in my early life. Survival was very important. Community was very important. Studying was very, very important. To get out of poverty was important. Another aspect of my life is that I spend all my vacations as a youth in a farm. This marked a lot of my views about nature, about spirituality, about economics, about international affairs. I think there is a big difference between people who actually have this particular experience with nature and those who don't, and have lived all their life in cities around cement. The third aspect that I think is important in my life is that I had my first spiritual experiences when I was very little. And that called my attention, that there was something different. There was another aspect of life that I needed to focus on sooner or later. My first spiritual experience that I remember was at 4 years of age. And I didn't understand it very well, but it marked another aspect of my life. Another dimension of my life is when I woke up to the collective nature of humanity. It was not just me alone. I was not an island. I was totally interdependent with you and all of us who are here and all the ones to come, And that interdependence was very important, particularly when you were a minority. You could not disregard the fact that you have to live with others. And when I talk about interdependence, I talk about human beings, sentient beings, and nature. Of course, many people, when they ask me about me, they want to know about the World Bank, because I was part of the World Bank. Obviously, that 3 decades at the World Bank had a lot to impact my life. I was the first environmental economist of the institution, and it took me more than a decade to see an environmental department actually to be there. But the World Bank opened my eyes to many, many, many things. For example, my first trip, my first mission, I was 28 years old, was to Pakistan and Sri Lanka. For a person from Chile, I had no idea what it looked like. I had no idea what to expect. My second mission was 2 months in India, in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, and do economic work there. A totally different society. And I think probably one of my best highlights of these 30 years is when the bank nominated me the special representative of the World Bank to the United Nations. That was like blooming. That was like liberating. And that's where I met Werner, because I was the bank representative in New York and in Geneva. So I cannot disregard these 3 decades. I entered at 28 years of age, and I left nearly 60 years old. The other thing that was very important is my full devotion for the last many decades to what I call socially engaged. In other words, to look at Buddhist principles, Buddhist teaching, the Buddha teaching about economics, politics, nature, human rights, social structure, which has been regarded by millions of Buddhists because they think that that is outside the realm of Buddhism. But I have done a lot of them. Actually, I'm putting a book together to show some of these sutras, these teachings of the Buddha on human rights, on right to nature, on right to sentient beings, on right to life, on right to women, on wealth, creation of wealth, on how to govern a nation. What does it mean, the term welfare? You know, what is welfare in a nation and how a nation can... So it's very, very, very rich. I spend a lot of time writing, lecturing, learning, reading, writing. And I would say that the last point that I like to share, Maria, about my life is when I met my spiritual teachers. And in meeting my spiritual teacher, I met my dearest friend, whom I admire and I love, Siri Ravi Shankar. You know, he was very, very young when he was there with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and I was one of the disciple of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. Then I had a fantastic, my last teacher, my last mentor, my spiritual father, Lama Ganchen Rinpoche, who died in 2020 because of COVID. So I want to mention this as part of me, my spiritual path, my spiritual teachers, because I don't see any difference between economics and spirituality. And I think the great challenge we have today, I don't see any difference between business and spirituality. I don't see any difference between politics and spirituality. I was a candidate to the presidency of Chile. And my platform as a candidate to the presidency of Chile was to link spirituality with politics. And I said it loud and clear. Politics without spirituality is a suicidal path. But spirituality without politics is a theory, you know, which is fine. We can be totally in our world of spirituality saying, oh, the politicians are all wrong, economists know nothing. You know, this is ridiculous. I spent all my life in this. I wrote my first article, which was called The Foundations of Spiritual Economics, nearly 40 years ago when I met Myra Jackson. You know, for a long, long time, we're doing this. And we, my friend, the youth, we are very late. We are very late. We still are thinking. We're still speculating about the meaning, the usefulness of spirituality in the public domain. So that's the way I would like to introduce myself, a seeker, a learner, very, very engaged in this union, this total union between the to have, to learn, to be, and to become. This is one. There is no separation. The separation is simply what is making us to fail today with humanity. And the politicians and the communicators, they are making sure that we identify ourselves with secondary identities and we distract ourselves with secondary identities. Example, I am from Chile. I am an economist. I am a man. I work at the World Bank. I am black, I'm white. All of this is a form of distracting us from the core, from the seed of who we are. And in the end, we are all the same, inseparable.
Wow, what a wonderful message. I think that each sentence you said can be ripped apart into multiple quotes, and they have so much depth. Thank you so much.